Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Very excited for today's episode. We have the Life Sensei, and she teaches people to let go of unresolved experiences from childhood so that you can create better abundance in your life. And that's not necessarily just money, that's everything. So I'm rocking up today with Nancy Mueller. Nancy, you ready to rock?
I'm ready, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Well, I would like to know first, on a good note, tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
A story of success in my business. For me personally, this is what I view as success. My idea of success for me personally is the fact that everything that I have been willing to work through, let go of, release in my life has enabled generations going forward and generations in my family to not have to recreate what was happening in my childhood. In other words, being able to break the cycle of abuse, being able to learn from what I experienced, teach it to my children, my grandchildren, and I'm even a great grandmother now. So when I look at the fact that generations going forward are not recycling all of that, that's my definition of success for me personally in my life.
Wow, that is impactful. Definitely. I mean, that is huge. I mean, to break a cycle like that and to push that forward, that's a pay it forward. That's amazing.
And what's more beautiful is that I'm able to teach others how to do it. So, when people say, no, there's just no way that, anything in my life can be different. It really is possible to stop creating your future from your past. So it's a
Yep.
win-win. It's a win-win for me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I mean, there's so much, negative in the world and how a lot of people were brought up. And so it's no wonder that some of these things start to repeat themselves. But I think it's really brave and courageous of you and many others who have now stepped out of that and said, you know what, enough's enough. Because I think a lot of the problem was that people felt ashamed of it and they didn't want to talk about it. And now, having people out there being examples of being able to talk about it, I think will make major changes in the world.
Absolutely. The only way that we can create peace in the world is to first create peace from within.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if we're reliving our old hurts and hurting others because of it, then we'll never have that peace.
Exactly.
So now along the journey, I mean, those are some bad notes right there. But we do hit some bad notes, some things that just don't go as expected. And, I like to talk about them because, every entrepreneur experiences many of them. And, it just seems to be that a lot of us are sort of programmed to look at failure as a bad thing, but failure doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It can be a good thing. We can learn things from it. So I'm wondering, can you share a story of failure or a mistake that you made in your business that you can help us recover from or even avoid if it happens to us?
What came to my mind the minute you said that was pick a card, any card, because there are many that I have experienced. And of course, I don't look at them as failures doing the work that I do. I just really don't see it as failure. But someone who's listening to this and looking for, or maybe hanging on to what my answer is going to be, it can feel like, well, that's not true. It's not true that there's no such thing as failure. So what we see as failure is always an opportunity for us to sit back and say, what am I being given the opportunity to learn in this experience? So in answer to your question, one of my biggies, I would say, is I've been doing this work, working with women since 1998. And a few years ago, I also really started taking on men as well as clients. And so in 2010, I was going through my divorce of 32 years. And I felt like the bottom dropped out of my world because I got married at 17. So for 32 years, this was who I am. This is how I saw myself: wife, mother, homeowner, homemaker, everything that goes along with that 32-year marriage. And so when it all came tumbling down, I almost was like I was identityless, like, well, who am I? If I'm not all those things, then who am I? And at that time, I thought, well, okay, I'm losing this, I'm losing this, I'm losing this. I am going to quit my corporate job and work my coaching business full time. But I did not have a plan. I just put in my resignation
Yep.
and hung out my shingle, so to speak. And, it was kind of like the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. And it doesn't happen that way. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything about anything. Let's just put it that way. But that's also when I wrote my first book. Also, didn't know anything about anything. But I can tell you that everything I needed came to me because of my belief in myself and my belief in my mission and my purpose and my vision and in what I'm here to do. That doesn't mean that there weren't days when I highly doubted myself. That doesn't mean there weren't days when I felt like I was seriously walking through jello and feeling like my life was so surreal. We all go through those times when something just absolutely smacks us in the head and we think we're not going to be able to come back from it. But when those times happen, I'll give you kind of like a tool if anyone wants this. This is what I do. I don't know how many years ago I started on my calendar, so it's on my phone. I have at 9:00 every night, it pops up and it says, the universe spoke to me today. And I open it up and I write in the description something phenomenal that happened to me that day as a reminder of how special I am as a spiritual being having a human experience in this lifetime. So on those days when I feel like something smacked me in the head, I go back and I look at those days and I say, see, this is proof of everything is working for you. This is proof. This is proof. So today you're sitting in that non-proof thought process, that non-proof mindset. And I go back, and this isn't like a book that I'm reading from someone else's success. This is me, my words. Nancy, do you remember when this happened? Do you remember when this happened? Do you remember when this happened? Now, of course, I can say yes, but a lot of times, when we're in those low vibrational energy mindset places, we're like a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum and we just like, I just don't want to be happy today. But it's proof for me. This happened, this happened, this happened. So Nancy, do you want to sit in the mud or you want to get up and fly? It's up to you.
Yeah. Wow. Those are powerful things to say. Like, number one, the last thing you said about writing something positive, like, I find it so bizarre that we are totally okay with tearing ourselves down.
Yeah.
But when someone says, hey, I want you to write something good, something positive, something that makes you feel powerful, and we're like, ooh, that feels weird. Like, why is it okay for the negative, but not okay for the positive? Isn't that interesting?
Well, it's basically how we were raised, and this is why everything tracks back to childhood. Now, I'm going to be very blunt here and remind everyone listening to this, that's not to blame your parents. That's not to blame your childhood. There's no blame. There's no blame whatsoever. But when you understand that this is where your beliefs started from the day you were born, from age 0 to 8 years of age, that's when you're creating all of your beliefs. That's when you really start to believe in who you are and who you aren't. And we create that so firmly within our mindset, within our very DNA, within our cellular structure, and we bring those beliefs with us into adulthood. And then we're walking around as adults, but we're still making choices based on childhood beliefs. And we don't understand why we struggle, why we can't move forward, why we're having problems or challenges, or why we hate our mom or our dad or our siblings, or it sucked to be the middle child and all of that. But when you understand that there's a vibrational feeling attached to all of that, and you have the power to release that, sky's the limit.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, and I mean, it sounds to me like you've been through a few things, and so I'm wondering. I mean, I usually say something that practice makes. I used to say practice makes perfect, but now I say practice makes progress. So, because to get good at anything, including positive self-talk,
Yep.
you need to practice it. And so I'm wondering, can you give us some of maybe what you do to practice, and maybe some tips for us on how we can, keep that high vibration?
Sure. Um, for me, my practice is I have like a story that I tell myself. And every morning I get up and I look at this, and my story is my vision. It's not my story about what took place in the past. My story is my vision. Nancy, look at you. You are amazing. You are doing this, 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 and this, and you've reached this. Now, what's next? That type of a story for you, because there are a lot of people out there who will tell you, oh, create affirmations and say them all the time. And you can say words, you can read words, but if you don't feel them, the universe knows, well, you're not feeling that. The universe is always going to send you what you're feeling on that vibrational level. So knowing when I read this, there's a little bit about, Nancy, you are so awesome. You did X, Y, and Z. Now we're looking forward to A, B, and C. And I get so excited about this because it's a reminder to me of how fabulous I am. And that's not an arrogant statement. That's a statement of empowerment. When you're truly empowered and you know that you matter and you're here for a reason. And when you discover that reason, are you stepping into it, or are you stepping back and saying, well, I see others could do that, but I doubt that I could do that. And then the question is, well, why can't you do that? If this is your jam, to use your words, then that's what you must do. When I was in the 9th grade, I was sitting at an assembly, and this woman came to our school and she talked about drugs and her drug use. And of course, her message was all about trying to keep us off drugs. But she was down there on the floor. I'll never forget this. She was down there on the floor and she's talking about her drug use and how she was in jail and how the cell was, she couldn't lay down and spread out and she couldn't stand up. And I don't think they do that to people in jail nowadays, but it was just so harrowing, her story about how she was telling us all of these things that she had experienced because of her choice to use drugs. And I remember sitting there, I was in the 9th grade, and right away, I said, that's what I want to do. I want to stand up in front of groups of people and I want to talk about something so phenomenal that I have experienced and move through, that I will inspire people if they choose to move through it. But the very next minute, of course, my 9th grade self was like, who am I kidding? I can't do that. This woman's talking about things that happened to her. I can't talk about anything going on in my life. I can't talk about my home life. I can't talk about what's going on at home. Oh my gosh, God will strike me dead. The earth will swallow me whole. I'm going to burn in hell. We have to keep these secrets. I can't talk about it. So, the beliefs that I had as that child kept that dream or that vision in me so in a box. But as I got older and I became a mother in my mid-20s, that's when it started to come out, because I knew if I want to be a better, different, more loving mother than the mother I had, I certainly needed to work on me before I could do that. Otherwise, I would just keep repeating, what I had learned. So for me, I have known this since the 9th grade, but that doesn't mean that I was able to step into it at a very early age.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably pretty common, that you sort of get like an inkling of what you are and who you can be, and then you just sort of get beaten down for a while,
Yep.
just by whatever. And it is so bizarre that we can tell the people that we love that they're amazing and that they're awesome, but we feel like it's arrogant if we tell ourselves that we're awesome and we're amazing. So, I think having some regular practices around that is a good idea. Now,
Absolutely.
another thing that people struggle with when they're getting started on their journey of building a business from home is just setting up a jam room, setting up an office in the house that they could be productive in. And I'm wondering, I'm seeing the background there. It looks like you have an awesome space. So tell us about how to create a space where you can create your business.
Well, I don't know, years and years and years ago, I heard the term an I love me wall. And I thought, what does that mean? And basically, it's a wall where you hang all of your awards, certificates, degrees, all of that stuff. It's things you hang on the wall that remind you of your successes and the things that you have done that are so um, mean so much to you. So for me, my I love me wall is about what I do to love me. Meditation, pictures of my girls when they were little, pictures of my family, pictures of just sayings, bells, I mean, plants, anything that lights me up, anything that really raises my vibrational energy is so important to me, because what it does is it raises my vibrational energy. And regardless of what you do when you work from home, you must find that space where when you are maybe you feel like you're not being productive, or you're not being creative enough, or you can't find the answer to something that you want. If this is your space, you must be able to sit back and look around and change your environment, even if it's only mentally, meaning what's in your eyesight. So it's important, like, are you staring at a wall? If you are, what's on that wall? Is it something that inspires you? Maybe a saying, a quote, a picture, a vacation you took, something that really lights your fire, something that lights you up and opens you up. To me, that's really important.
We've got a place to work, we've got our practices in place. Now I'm wondering, you got to get out there. You got to go get some fans, because what's the point of being a rock star if you got nobody watching you, right? So
Correct.
so tell me, how do you go out there and get those fans?
Well, there's a very popular phrase right now, that's been going on for a while, but it's called the imposter syndrome. So anyone who's dealing with any type of imposter syndrome, no matter what the level, and imposter syndrome is basically like, gosh, I can't be the one to stand up and say this or that, because I don't remember where I learned it. And what if I'm quoting somebody else, or one of my teachers, or a book, or am I plagiarizing something? And so basically, whatever is causing you to doubt yourself about standing up and being who you are and sharing yourself with the world. And it's like I said earlier, that I know I am fabulous. So you must be able to step into your fabulousness. I don't know if that's a word, but ask yourself, I am fabulous. And then feel your energy. Do you kind of sink in and go, yeah, right? Or because if you sink in, like your shoulders come down and okay, your energy is telling you don't believe that. But if you can say it and that your chest goes out and your shoulders go back and you believe that about yourself, now when you get out there and you talk about your products, your services, people feel that. And it's like Maya Angelou said, people may forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. So if you are feeling like vibrating on an 8, 9, or a 10, 10 being the highest, and you're just out there and you're talking about, this is what I do, this is why I do it, this is why I love why I do it, how can people not be attracted to you? But on the other side of that, keep in mind that if you're not attracting people, it could be because they're not ready for you. And I know that there are so many people who try to convince others, I have what you need, I have what you need. And I'm not going to take no for an answer until you really buy my products or services. But when you're doing that, you're just wasting your energy, because there's so many people waiting for you. If there weren't, you wouldn't have this ability to do what you do. I mean, there are no accidents in the universe.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a faith-based approach. And I mean, I think that the way that I get around that is, number one, is there something that you are just not very good at, but your neighbor is really good at it? and and then vice versa. There's something that you're very good at, but they're not very good at, and then they've asked you to do it for them, and then you do it and you're just like, well, that was easy. Well, the bottom line is that there is something that you have that someone else doesn't want to do, or they don't like doing it, or it's too hard for them, and you just have a gift at it. So
Mhm.
just because you find it easy, I find that's where a lot of the imposter syndrome comes in with me, is that, I'm like, oh, I can't charge that because it really just, it don't, it took me no time at all. And but you know what? All of my experiences led me to the point where it is no big deal and I love doing it. So why isn't it worth it? Because to the other person, they would have to figure it out themselves, or they'd spend a boatload of money trying to figure out, how to hire someone to do it. So there's no point in really, holding yourself back and saying, I can't do this because I don't have the whatever, it's too easy for me. Just recognize that someone else is loving what you're doing, right? Is that
Right.
is
Yes. And what's important too is that when something does come really easy to us, most of us, I would say 99% of us, are conditioned to believe that it must not be important. If it's that easy, then it must not be important.
Yeah. Or it should be free. Oh my goodness, music is such a great analogy for this particular topic, because how many times have I gone and someone approaches me, hey, can you play some music at this, event or whatever? It'll be great exposure for you. Like, really? Why? Like, why is my skill just because I love it, it doesn't mean I need to be going and doing it for free for everybody, right?
Mhm. Well, yes, and of course, the easy answer back to that is, "Oh, I'd love to. Thank you so much. Here are my prices." Now, that gives the person the opportunity to say, no, I didn't want to pay you," or "Sure." But number one, you'll never get your pricing if you don't ask for it. And number two, you know, you're letting people know that you value you. And when we value who we are, others value who we are. I mean, think about it. If you could have, like, let's just say two friends, one friend who, I don't know, maybe just doesn't really take care of himself personally, drives a ratty car, he just doesn't care about anything, no judgment, just that's the way he is. Okay, fine. So if he's going to come over to your house, you probably don't worry about cleaning up or, I don't know, putting things away and stuff like that. But then if you have another friend who is, really on top of things, loves where he works, what he drives, his home, is very meticulous about things. If that person comes over to visit you, chances are you're going to do something different than you would normally do to prepare for that person's visit. So see, it's all what we're putting out there. It doesn't mean that we think we're better than anyone else. It's simply giving ourselves the opportunity to have this experience of who we are based on how we want to experience who we are.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the beauty of this whole industry of working at home, being self-employed, is that we all have these gifts and they're all complementary to each other. And in order for me to succeed, I actually need to have a few other successful people around me to be successful
Mhm.
as well. And so we can all learn and grow and build together in this journey. And there's definitely no shame in that, because we all would have paid someone else to do it anyway. So why not you? Right?
Exactly. And it keeps us from being complacent. When you come into contact with someone who's doing something that you would like to aspire to, um, then you have that opportunity to say, wow, I'd really like to learn that, or I'd really like to adapt that mindset or that experience or way of doing something. But it's the old adage, you don't know what you don't know. So if you're not putting yourself out there with other people, and let's face it, 2020 has given us such a phenomenal opportunity to network and meet people beyond borders. I mean, prior to 2020, most of us, we would network and talk to people, but they would be in our own neighborhoods and you tend to meet the same people all the time. Now, because of everybody being in isolation, and we're now on video calls and we are meeting people all over the world. We're talking to people all over the world. We're learning about cultures that we didn't even know about prior to 2020. And it is broadening our minds and and our way of thinking, our way of doing business, and how we reach out to people, how we talk to people. And it's always about looking at what are we being given the opportunity to, instead of what was taken from us, because nothing was taken from us. The past is the past. It's over. Move forward.
Yeah. And well, you learn that real quick as being an entrepreneur, because, you get blindsided by lots of things. So, I mean, that is one thing that I found very interesting when speaking to people about, COVID, is that, for the self-employed world, or even the business world, a lot of us sort of went, okay, it's another, roadblock that I just hit, and so let's figure it out. Right. Whereas, if you've been working a job or something like that, well, then you're really, kind of stuck, because you don't really know exactly what to do. But that is one thing that, if you want to become an entrepreneur, if you're just getting started on your journey and you're listening to this, there's going to be a lot of those types of things that are going to happen. And the one thing that we've all learned is that there's always a way. There's always a way through it.
And don't suffer in silence, because suffering is optional. So if you're suffering because you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do next, I don't know where to go, I don't know who to talk to, reach out. I mean, if you're on any type of social media, you're in contact with so many people, reach out, start to have a conversation. But this has also given us the opportunity to start having authentic conversations, instead of, oh, hey, saw your post, thought I'd love to connect. What do you think? Yes, fine, we connect. And then I've got this bazillion, gazillion, whatever to sell you.
Yeah.
That's not an authentic connection.
No.
And you'd be so surprised when you connect authentically, how other people then get to know you, and they now start recommending you to other people. And third party recommendation is an amazing way to get referrals and clients, and even more referrals, or more friends, or more connections, because you just can't possibly know what one choice is going to do to get you to that next opportunity.
Love it. Right. Circles right back around to the fans again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you know what? I mean, I think that business owners, especially, I mean, we're all about solving problems. That's what business is. And so when someone asks for help, we are apt to want to try to help you. Right. And so, if there's no shame in that, for sure, especially asking the business community, hey, I'm having some issues with my business. This is happening. And you are definitely going to find somebody who's had that same experience, or someone who's going through that same experience right now that you can connect with. And maybe you can work through it together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's definitely, that is one thing about the internet now, is that you can connect with people everywhere, and there's always help for whatever it is that you're going through. And like you said, the suffering is optional.
Exactly.
The pain is going to happen, but you don't have to sit in it, right?
Right. And we're learning, that what we call pain, it can be as long or short as we deem it,
Yep.
as long as we choose, because we can say, okay, for a split second, I thought I was wrong, but nope, I'm just learning something new. So what's next?
Yep.
What else can I learn? Sometimes I call it opposite thinking. When you find that your thoughts are really going into a negative abyss, stop and say, oh, okay, now I'm thinking about all these negative thoughts I'm thinking. What would happen if I turn those thoughts around? Just flip them around and make them positive. You'd be amazed at the difference.
Yep. One thing that I do is, how sometimes you're looking back on like some sort of embarrassing mistake, or some mistake that you made, 30 years ago or 20 years ago. I don't know how old people are when they're listening to this, but a long time ago. It's long past, and you're looking back on it. And how are you talking about it now? You're probably kind of chuckling about it, going like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. But you're definitely not really in huge pain. I mean, I suppose there could be some mistakes that are that, but I mean, like, for the most part, you're going to be looking back on it and going, boy, I won't do that again. So what's the difference? The difference is that 30 years have passed. You could be talking about that as if it happened this morning.
I don't necessarily think that it's the time that's passed. It's the energy that you're putting into the story, because, a lot of times we could talk about, let's use a near miss on the freeway, where you were going to move into a lane and someone was going almost hit you and you narrowly missed each other and you're like, whoa, that was close. Okay, so now that's in the past. Doesn't matter if it was this morning or 6 years ago or 60 years ago, but it's how you share the story. Do you share the story from that place of negative impact, that negative feeling and vibration of, oh my gosh, you won't believe what just happened to me, and you just like, you're holding on and you holding on to that energy, because the longer you hold on to that energy, that is the vibration that you're putting out into the universe. And or can you share the story of, oh my gosh, freaked me out for a minute. I'm not going to lie. I was totally like, had my hands crossed and I don't even believe in crossing my hands or something like that, but it's how you share the story. You must go beyond your story always.
So speaking of stories, it's your guest solo. So tell me, what's your story? What's going on in your business right now?
Well, I'm really excited. I recently created an audiobook from my 2015 best-selling book titled Healing the Child Within, Life is All About Choices. And it's now available on my website for download. There is a 42-page journal that goes with it. And this is so much information about our perceptions of why things are like they are in our adult life, why we don't get along with certain people, how we can understand where our beliefs come from, where they incorporated to begin with, and how you can take that step by step by step. And I share all this and teach this based on sharing my story of verbal abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse that escalated to sexual abuse by the age of 12. And then sharing my mother's story. My mother shared her story in the book. And when you look at her story and her life, you start to understand why she parented the way she did. And then from there, now that your perception has changed, there are so many exercises in there that you can apply to your own life. And you can say, wow, I always thought that this was like this because of that. But I can see now, if I shift that perspective, that there might be something else to it. And I can let go of this lodestone that's been hanging around my neck for all these years, and bam. So I'm very excited to share this.
Yeah, of course. So where do we get it?
Visit my website on masteringyourbeliefs.com. There's free downloads. You can download the audiobook. I mean, for less than the price of a book on Amazon, you will get so much information. And it's the basis of everything that I teach and have been teaching for over 20 years, 30 years now. Oh my gosh, 30 years now. No, that's all right. I am 64 going on ageless, so it's all good.
All right. I think there's a Beatles song about that. So thank you so much for rocking out with me today. And definitely, what was the website again?
Masteringyourbeliefs.com.
Masteringyourbeliefs.com. Right on. Thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Nancy. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate you having me on the show and giving me a platform to share my message.
No problem. To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment, and we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.